Hello, everybody. So this is our first ever group Facebook Live. We want to start doing these a whole lot more. Once a week is what we have scheduled out. But they're just going to be some case studies. They're going to be informational. They're going to be for people that have been in the business a long time and people that are just getting started. So hopefully you guys can join us every week. Now we'll normally do these on Tuesdays, but scheduling conflict, we did Thursday this week. So, okay, I want you guys to say hello. Let me transfer you over. How do I get it off? There we go. Okay, to Anita. And she has been in the business like 7 or 8 years, I think is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's her and her husband, and she's going to give a little bit of background on herself.
Hi, everybody. I am happy to be here with you. I love sharing case studies. It's the best way to learn, and that's how I learned a lot. So I'll share a little bit about my background. I've been a full-time real estate investor here in San Antonio, Texas with my husband, Lance. We own a company called Nine Locals. I'll share a little bit more as I go through the presentation, but we've done a little bit of everything. We've started out with flipping and rehabbing, and that moved into rentals and Airbnbs, and we've done owner finance and subject to, and I'm a licensed real estate agent. My husband's a contractor by trade. We've stepped into commercial last year with a hotel, so lots going on, and we've kind of seen it all. We've done everything from full gut rehabs of historic properties, which is a little bit of what you're going to see today, to just cosmetic stuff and everything in between. And I also do a lot of training on private lending, which I'll talk about later.
And she has a hotel, which I'm fascinated with, by the way.
And it's tied to the case study. So
yes.
A little bit about it.
Okay, well, if you just kind of, so everybody knows like what this one is about, I originally wanted to have her come on because of what she experienced with COVID. But then when she started to go through everything that she went through, there's a whole lot of stuff that is kind of off the wall with this, and it's not normal. And I'm like, okay, so this is not just COVID. COVID is a very small piece of it. But originally I kind of wanted to talk about like how COVID hurt or helped people's business. But I'm really excited for you to kind of dig into this. So
yeah, COVID didn't help. Let me just it didn't help. So let me, if it's okay with you, Katie, I'll just kind of jump in.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay, so give me a second because I got to share my screen with you guys.
And if you guys have any questions about anything, ask in the comments. If you watch this on a replay, go ahead and ask in the comments still. The way that Facebook works on our end is I can put some of the comments on the screen, but it just says Facebook user. So put your name at the end of it so we kind of know who's saying it. So, okay, go ahead.
Perfect. So you can see my screen, right? You see the house?
Oh, wait, let me add it. I have to add it. Okay. There you go.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm calling this a little bit of a mixture since this property's out in the wine country and we've got liquor everywhere. It's one part this and one part that, and COVID had a lot to do with this, but it's the renovation of a very beautiful old historic home out on the Texas Wine Trail. And just a lot of things, as Katie said, lent to our expectations not being met in any form or fashion in terms of how this was going to pan out. So I'm going to walk you through this. I will give you some thoughts at the end. I am going to tell you this is probably not for a new investor, but you'll learn
not at all.
As you grow and as you get involved, the things that will come at you. This is a great case study to give you an idea of what you're going to be challenged with as you get your feet more wet. So I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of background. I chatted earlier, we're full-time investors. This is what we do for a living. I've been a realtor since 2014. It's just a way for me to help control my expenses and have more control over my projects. My husband's a licensed, although an active home inspector. We own a roofing company. It's something he did before he met me. And so we resurrected that business when COVID hit because we all had to shift and figure out how to pay our bills. We own several Airbnbs and manage others. And the hotel in Fredericksburg was kind of our first jump last year or 2 years ago now into commercial out in this area. And that's how we found this house. So you'll hear a little bit about that story. But my background by trade is I was in the lending business for 15 to 20 years, working in the brokerage environment. So firms like Merrill Lynch and UBS, I was teaching financial advisors how to incorporate lending into their business and with their clients. And so lending's in my background, and you'll hear a little bit about how we finance these projects so that you get a taste for whether or not you want to start raising private money. But you're welcome to follow us on Facebook. We do a lot on there. That's how we grow our business. So there's our tags. Okay, so when I spoke with Katie yesterday, I live in San Antonio. I don't live out by this house. Katie's from Dallas, and I'm sure we have people from all over the country. And if you're not from Texas, this area of Texas may not be well known. So she definitely wanted me to give you an idea about why, what is the Texas Hill Country? What is Texas wine country? You can see the little map on the bottom corner. So Texas is a big state, obviously, and there's a region of Texas that's absolutely beautiful, just filled with green trees and hills. We're not mountains, so we don't have that, but we call it the Hill Country. And it's about 45 minutes north of San Antonio, west of Austin. And so it's a destination. It's a huge tourist area for people all over the country come down and drink wine. And there's 50 to 60 wineries in this 10 to 15 mile radius and all kinds of fun things to do. So it's a beautiful part of Texas to come and visit, and it continues to be a draw. What you're looking at is how we ended up out in this area was being renovators and investors by trade. A lifelong friend of my husband who's very involved in the wine business out there said, hey, there's this funky little hotel that was built for LBJ and the press corps back in the 1960s. That's right around the corner from his ranch. It's been neglected and misused, and I want to buy it. Given what's going on out there, let's partner up. And so we did. Long story short, we ended up buying it at the end of 2018 and renovating it. And what you're looking at is the map. So to give you some perspective about why we wanted to renovate and be in the real estate business out there is off on the left, you're going to see Fredricksburg, which is the quaint German little town, and you're going to see houses in Fredericksburg. It is actually the most expensive real estate market in the state of Texas.
I did not know that.
It is, blowing out Austin, Houston, and everything else.
Whoa, I did not know that.
It's a little.
I thought Austin would have been.
Yeah, no, it surpassed Austin last year. It's a little town of about 12,000 people, believe it or not. But when the tourists come in with the money, everything goes nuts. And it's charming, old houses.
Yeah.
This is very, very expensive out there. But Fredericksburg is what kind of kicked it off. And then the wineries started to move east along that highway, Highway 290, in between there and Johnson City, which is just behind the picture of the hotel. That's about a 15-minute drive. That's where the growth has really exploded, and all the wineries are coming and people are moving to just along the trail. And so this hotel is the only functioning hotel that's between Stonewall and Fredericksburg. Johnson City and Fredericksburg. So we bought it, renovated it, opened it up. So that's kind of why this area, I wanted to give you some perspective about what's going on out there. Fredericksburg's the new Aspen. You're starting to see that coming out. It's actually the second largest, most visited wine territory, wine area in the United States.
What? I didn't know that either.
No, it's often, what did one reporter say? Often forgotten. It's just kind of a little secret that's starting to come out. And
so even all the wineries in California, it surpasses those?
Napa's first. So Napa's where everybody goes. But after that, Texas, in terms of visitors that come down to drink wine, come into Texas. If you've been to Napa, Napa's beautiful. It's a little different. If you're from Texas, it's much more laid back. It's just a little more or Texas. I don't know how to explain it.
I've actually never been to Fredricksburg, but I've been to Napa.
Okay.
And Napa is, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But I've been wanting to go to Fredericksburg too, but I didn't know any of that.
Oh, it's crazy what's going on out there. And you're starting to see the California wineries coming in. Calais is the first one that came a year or two ago, and they're starting to come in and buy. Rumor has it the Salt Lick is building a new location out there down the street from the hotel. There's a tequila distillery, Garrison Brother Whiskey. I mean, there's just all kinds of fun things to do out there. But, it's become this destination. And with that, I put a little frame of reference about how housing prices are exploding. And you can see, we've gone from, 200,000 average price in 2006 to well over 400,000 now, a short 13 years later. And it continues to just explode because you have a small town of 12,000 people. There's only so much infrastructure that can be sewer and septic and electrical. There's only so much you can do out there. But that's led to, what you're seeing there. Charming Hill Country Town, surprisingly named least affordable place to live in Texas, and the wine trail continues to expand. It's just kind of nutty. So from an investor standpoint, those are indicators that make this a very nice place to want to go in. And you know what, Katie, give me 2 seconds. My thing is not plugged in and my battery's going to die. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought it was plugged in. It's not.
That's okay. My daughter is coming into the room as well.
I'm sorry.
What charger? I don't have a charger.
Okay.
We have 2 out there.
Okay. So I apologize about that. I thought I had it.
Shut the door. Please. Shut the door, please. Virtual school. One more day.
My apologies. Let me pick up where I left off. So, what you're seeing as an investor, these are indicators of a great place to want to rehab, right? You've got prices going up. You have a shortage of inventory. There's not a lot that's renovated out there because can't find labor.
Hard, yeah.
And it's expensive. So all of these things just started to make sense. So now kind of why we picked the area. So let me give you a visual of what charm is in Texas and what the prices are. You're looking at 1,100 square feet that needs a full rehab cosmetic, $350,000. A 2-bedroom, 1 bath. A 2,300 square foot that is rehabbed, maybe not recently, it's going for $850,000. $1.2 million for 4,100 square foot house. They're in the main area, but that's where everybody wants to be. Everybody wants these charming old homes. Money's coming in, they're cash buyers, they're second homes, and they're renting them out as Airbnbs. There's 800 Airbnbs in this little town.
1.6 million for almost 1,800 square feet.
Yeah, this one's on the market right now. I pulled some yesterday because I couldn't get MLS access, but this is
that's so crazy.
Right. Yeah. So, we're kind of looking at, when those prices come in, you start to think, well, people want to be out there, they want to buy, but not everybody can afford these astronomical prices. So they're willing to give up something to be in the area. And so giving up being right down on Main Street in Fredericksburg means going out on the trail and maybe opening themselves up to being a little farther away than the hub, but still being in the thick of things.
Now, I know you told me, but I don't remember. How far is Fredericksburg, like the Main Street, those houses, to where this house is, the one you rehabbed?
Oh, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but right here in Fredericksburg. So this is where kind of Main Street. I don't know if you see.
No, I can't see it.
So off on the left of the map, you're going to see Fredericksburg and all of the dots. That's Main Street, okay? And then the house that we bought is right in the middle underneath the sign in Stonewall. So that's Stonewall, Texas. And that's about a 10-minute drive from Main Street, Fredericksburg. So we're not talking an hour. We're talking 10 to 15-minute drive to get out, and it's on the trail. So it's
that's such a huge difference. I mean, the price wise to, oh my gosh. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I would drive 10 minutes to
Yeah.
cut $500,000 on a house.
And that's what we were thinking when we started to look for property. So now that you know why we chose the area to invest long term in the hotel, but also, okay, now we finished the hotel, let's find a project out here. There's a shortage of housing. People are still want to be out here. Let's find something that we can tackle. And we didn't know quite how to do that, right? We weren't from the area. I live in San Antonio. Even though I'm licensed, I'm not part of that board. And fate happens. We went to a local fish fry as representatives of the hotel. It's still a small town. They do fish fries to support the local fire department. And we went out, and there's 2,000 people that descend on this fish fry annually. And just by chance, I sat across from a lovely lady and struck up a conversation, her and her husband, and we all started talking. Well, she's a realtor, and she works for a company out of Fredricksburg that's very well known and is probably the place that you want to go to. And so we just kind of started chatting, and she knew what we'd done at the hotel, and we struck up a conversation. And she just casually mentioned, I think we've got a house that's getting ready to hit the market out here in Stonewall. I'll check into it on Monday and let you know. Well, I started, you got to pay attention to stuff like that, right? Off market coming on, and it's in an area we want to look at. And so Monday morning, the first thing I did was text her and say, hey, what nice to meet you, glad we connected, what's going on with this house? And she got on it, and 2 days later we went to look at it. It was a family home. They'd had it for maybe 10 or 15 years. They didn't have, it wasn't long term. And while the house was built, you'll see it in just a second, built in 1906, they had done a lot of work since then to keep it up. So it wasn't a complete gut and tear down like we're used to. So what did we walk into? Charming old home on half an acre in Stonewall, wraparound porch, pitch ceilings, original wood floor.
I was going to say, is that original wood floor?
In most of the house, yeah. They added on, it must have been a really small house to begin with. But once you go down where the fireplace is, you see that door, that's to the bedrooms.
Okay.
There's one in the front, but those go to 2 bedrooms. That must have been an add-on because that's not original wood flooring back there. But the rest of the house is. 1,300 square feet. It was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. In good condition. It had updated wiring. It had an older metal roof, but it wasn't the original metal roof. They had done some work on the 1 bathroom that was in there. And as I was telling Katie yesterday, if you're going to live in this house, you better be really tight with your family, because the only restroom was through the master bedroom in the front.
Yeah.
So we had to fix that. The kitchen was huge, but it was dated and needed some love. It needed a lot of work cosmetically, but structurally there wasn't anything wrong with the house. Crazy colors on the
Which is
wall.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like 1906, I'm assuming, was it pier and beam?
It's pier and beam, yeah.
And then having all of the major things fixed, AC, foundation, electrical, somebody must have already have come in and done all of that, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. So throughout the years, as whoever owned it, have done work to keep it up. And if you're in Texas, the big thing that we worry about is San Antonio's foundation issues. We didn't have any of that out here. It's just flat as could be. The ground is hard. There weren't any shifting, which, hallelujah. The family was asking $225 for it. It was off market. We were the first people to even see it, and we jumped all over it. We offered them offered them $200. We came back and settled at $210. As is, they didn't want to do any work, so that's fine with us because we're going to tear it apart anyway. And we put it under contract. So just a charming little home. And a couple of things to keep in mind about out here. Half an acre. This is Stonewall. I'm on septic. Okay. There's no infrastructure out there yet for sewer systems. So that comes into play a little bit later on, but there's septic systems. And in the back, I couldn't find a picture. I apologize. But at the very back of the property, they had built it was probably about 1,000 square foot garage of sorts. The left side, it was just a flat, you open it up, it was a flat concrete ladder comes down, we walk into the attic, and it's just this massive pitched roof up there. Beautiful. I could see myself making this an accessory dwelling unit with a great staircase going up, putting a kitchen and a bath, and then there was a kind of a carport that you could hang down.
Now, did you with that back there, did you even factor in what it would be to do that rehab as well?
We did. Yeah.
Okay.
We had kind of looked around. There's a lot of Airbnbs out there. And if you're in
Mm-hmm.
the Airbnb business, you got to figure out how do you maximize your profit? Well, the easiest thing to do, if you can get away with it, is to put an additional unit on your property, right?
Yeah.
But as I go through the presentation, you're going to see the challenge that we had with comps in the area. And I didn't know, this was just a shell. I would have had to have added another septic system, done more electrical work because it was way back at the back of the property. I would have had to add a kitchen and square footage off to the side for a bathroom. And I didn't know if I could get my money back. That's no problem to do the work. I just didn't know if I could get it back. Right?
Yeah. And that's the big thing is, you can run when people are looking at houses and they want to get the ARV. I've always, you can add on to it. Let's say it needs another bedroom. You can look at that on your comps if it makes a difference to go up in square footage and add a bedroom. But I never even thought to add on the repair of adding that extra stuff on and then running the comps with what it would be like with that until someone told me. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, what? Why haven't I been doing that? But that makes sense because there's some houses that it makes a huge difference to have a garage, to have extra space, to have rental, like property basically on the back, or to rent, do Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So that does make a difference when you are running your comps on this.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of had a vision of who our ultimate buyer would be. It's somebody that was going to buy a second home and Airbnb it on the weekends. That's just what was going on out there. And while I wanted to do it, my creative juices wanted to do it. We could have spent the money easily. I just couldn't get comfortable that I could get my money back. And you'll see why as I go through. So a great house, great bones, just needed some lipstick basically. Okay, so what was our rehab? We refinished the floor. We had to refinish the floors, so sand them down and stain them. They were in great condition. They just had been, tarnished and dull. New kitchen, everything. Cabinets. We put quartz on the countertops. We new appliances. Obviously, we even plumbed an area off to the side for a coffee maker, like a commercial grade coffee maker, because we figured Airbnb, this
Pretty cool.
coffee station. So we always look for little things that are inexpensive to do to be able to sell it faster, right? Speaking to the ladies out there, stuff like that makes them, happy, makes me happy. I'd love to have commercial grade gear in my house. I don't have to fill up all the time. We had this odd sliding door to nowhere. So I jumped back. So that on the middle picture on the very right with the green walls where the sliding glass blinds are, that is a door that went to nowhere. There was literally a 6-foot fence about 5 feet out of that door. There was nowhere to go. So we needed to get rid of that because it made no sense and put some great windows in there. We needed to add a bathroom, which wasn't functional. We wanted to enhance the master bathroom. So while they'd done some great work, there was it was a cheap plastic surround in the bathtub, and the lighting wasn't great. So we did a little bit of work there. Interior and exterior paint, the whole thing needed to be painted and changed. It was a dull yellow, so we wanted to liven it up a little bit. New lighting. We replaced some ceiling fans. We stained the outside deck. Again, nothing wrong with it. It just was dull. We did a little bit of landscaping. But the big thing we found, so, we did negotiate, even though we did as is, we had seen the house, we still negotiated a couple of days of inspection period. We just needed a little bit more time alone to go into the house and see what was going on. And lo and behold, my husband got up into the attic in the main house. And he called me, he said, you know what, we have a problem here. There's no decking. you have a metal roof, any roof with no decking. So decking is the wood that goes underneath the shingles or the metal, and it's the sheathing that allows or prohibits the water from getting into your attic. And it's just, it's, if you don't have decking, it's a leak just waiting to happen. It's just a matter of time before that gives. And it's the
And
first thing. Mhm.
I was going to say, I would probably venture to say that most of the rehabs that I've been a part of, you almost have to just put in that you're going to change either all of the decking or part of it, because even just with regular shingles and not a metal roof, a lot of the times in these older houses or the ones that need rehab, there's a hole somewhere and you have to change out the decking, or like you said, someone didn't put decking on.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a big miss. And I to be honest with you, it's the first thing that's going to come back in an inspection
Yeah.
report. And the buyer's going to get freaked out because they're going to think that the water's just going to come flooding into their house and you're going to have to fix it anyway. So we had to adjust for that. And we ended up going back, excuse me, and renegotiating. So even though we bought the house as is, don't ever be afraid to go back and say, hey, we got a big problem here that we weren't really aware of, right? Yes, we bought as is, but there's no decking on this, and it's going to cost us X amount of money to do that. And so we ended up negotiating back down to 205. The worst thing somebody could say is no, but you always ask. We always ask. And so we had a rehab budget of about $50,000. Um, for out there, that's not a lot, but we actually had to bring our contractors out to live in the house and do the work because we would never have been able to do this in Fredericksburg for $50,000. It just wouldn't happen. Okay. So, any questions on the rehab stuff?
Um, the one thing I want to say is I know that you guys have a construction background. What would you tell people that don't really know anything on the construction side for prices or what to put in or what they should expect for that? How can they kind of budget, or if they're a wholesaler, to not put, $15,000 rehab on a $50,000 rehab?
Fair enough. So, two things I'll say to that. If you're new and you find a house, I'd probably tell you not to start with an old historic house.
No.
It's in great condition, but I see a lot of people in the area that I live, buy a house turn of the century 1900 that is a full gut, needs absolutely everything, and it's their first project, and they don't know how to do that, right? They don't know how to budget, they don't know what they need to get done, how to deal with the city, and it quickly goes upside down. So on your first couple of projects, take it easy if you can, right? If you could find projects that are cosmetic and paint, that's what we did. Even though we had a construction background, we wanted to understand how the process works and what we need to do to get from buy to sell. And we did a couple of cosmetic lipstick jobs, and then we went into foundation. So I'd start easy if you can. Um, Hire an inspector or find an experienced investor to walk the property with you. The inspector is in San Antonio, would cost you a couple $100 just to walk the house. You don't necessarily need a report, but think about it this way. The issues that he helps you find up front are the same issues that you're going to get caught on the back
Yeah.
end when you go to sell it, right? So let's fix them now and head them off versus waiting until it's nice and pretty and the house is done. And then all of a sudden you realize that you've got a roof with no decking, right? You've got to start all over on certain things. So hire an inspector until you get comfortable with the process and kind of identifying things, and ask them to educate. They're there to give you an education about certain electrical boxes that should send you in a red flag that you automatically know you need to replace. The roof, the foundation, just invest a little bit of money if you're going to buy the project yourself so that you know what you're dealing with. If you're wholesaling, that gets a little trickier because a lot of that depends on your area. My labor costs here in San Antonio are going to be very different than Katie's in Dallas or somebody in Los Angeles. So networking is probably your best option to find I don't want to say a mentor, but you need to latch on to somebody and say, hey, can I just walk through your next project with you? Or can I walk a house that you're going to go look at and just and quiz you on what it would cost? And what you'll ultimately come up with, which is what we did, is an Excel spreadsheet that basically allows me to dump in, this is a square footage of the house, this is a square footage of the kitchen, the bathrooms, etc. And my flooring, I'm going to estimate is 250 per square foot, because I know now that's what I can go buy for tile, or I can go buy for wood flooring. You've got to kind of understand what you can go get at Home Depot. So I would encourage you to, as you go through this process and walk through with an investor, the easier things that you can learn to quote really, really quickly, right? Laminate wood flooring. Go to Home Depot and find out what kind of an average, or get online and find out what an average square price per square foot. Subway tile, or contractor tile, depending on the grade of project that you're doing. Again, you can get an idea what it costs. So you'll have the easy stuff, kitchen cabinets. Cabinets to go is a good place for learning. You can get online. Home Depot is can be expensive, but there are services out there, vendors that will help you define a kitchen outlay and what that would cost for you. So, but in the meantime, you can use rough numbers, right? If you can understand what your costs for materials are, you can estimate some budget for labor. The big thing I find with wholesalers is their estimates are usually way too low.
Yeah.
And that just tells me that they've not spent the time to understand and educate themselves about what things cost in their area, what labor might cost, and give a better estimate. So if you're out buying, the lesson there, right, is if you're out buying from a wholesaler, you want to be able to know if those numbers are on target. You've got to know this stuff a little bit as well, so that you can say, no, you're crazy. I can't do what is a $50,000 rehab for $30,000. You're just not going to get there. So arming yourself with an education is the fastest way to be able to negotiate better as well.
And wholesalers the biggest thing with people in general just asking for help is you're asking for something, but you're not giving any value back to someone. So a couple of things is you can ask, hey, can I just drive you around for 2 days and follow you, and you kind of go through all your property and you tell me what's going on? And that way you can still work in the passenger seat while we drive around. You can listen to their phone calls. As a wholesaler, you can say, hey, what if I brought you like my first 3 deals, or you buy 1 deal from me? Would you let me follow you through that process and you tell me what you're looking for? Because it does make a difference. The $50,000 rehab that you guys had on this, what would it have been if there was a GC on this? Because you guys GC basically your own stuff,
Yeah,
right?
we do. If I realistically, in this little town, if I had to hire a general contractor and rely on him to pick materials, because when a contractor picks materials, he's going to give you a couple of options and then he's going to mark it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pay for those services. Assuming that I could get anybody to do it fast, contractors are a year out in this area to get them to do a rehab. I would venture to say what we did out there would have cost me $125,000 minimum, because I would have had to have a roofer come out, tear off the roof. They may not have wanted to put the original roof back on, right? It's an old roof. They may not want the liability. The cabinets, we source our cabinets from the manufacturer. He's probably going to go to Home Depot or mark it up at least that much versus what I saved. We dragged our granite company from San Antonio, because we do a lot of business with them, to come out and do the quartz, where I paid $45 a square foot. I would have probably paid at least 80 out there to have somebody come out.
Yeah.
So that price just goes up and up, and you're going to pay 20, 30% on top of your materials charge for his time and effort. And you're at the mercy of the contractor. So We've tried that route. I'm not saying don't find a general contractor. You do not have to GC your own projects. But if you can, you're going to save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Tried to go to 3 GCs on because we wanted to grow our business, right? If I'm managing a project and keeping an eye on contractors, I'm not doing other things and finding other properties. And I move too fast. I want things done a certain way. We just couldn't find the right person for us. So we just said, you know what, we'll do our own projects.
Okay. I mean, that's it. That was the question, that one, the differences in the rehab and what people can do to make a difference with getting this information and getting this education. And there's stuff online that you can go in and watch, and it gives you an idea of kind of what you can budget for your rehab for each thing. I was always told $5,000 for each major thing. So foundation in DFW here, every house needs foundation work. So I've not been a part of a rehab where foundation was not needed. And then electric, AC, roof. I know water heater is not going to cost $5,000, but I was always told just go ahead and add in at least a little bit of that. But if you need to replace it, just use $5,000 for each of those.
And that's a great place to start, right? If you're calculating your ARV minus your repairs and that number doesn't work, then it's time to start drilling down and seeing where you can start to make sense. But you got to start somewhere as a wholesaler, and being able to just, doing a $5,000 per room or per major project is a great place to start.
Okay. And then you didn't have, I know on this, which is crazy to me, you basically had no comps on this.
No. So that brings us to challenge number 1 or 2. So Stonewall is a small town. It's basically, one of those towns that as you're whizzing down this busy highway, if you blink, you're from one end to the other. There's a small area of town where these houses reside, and it's like every other small town out there, right? People know each other. Houses out there have been in families for many, many years. The minute somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I'm selling my house for whatever reason, somebody else gets wind of it and it gets bought before it even gets on the market.
Yeah.
So there's no comps. There were absolutely no comps in this area. As a matter of fact, the realtor that we ended up using had just bought her house, an Airbnb second home down on the river. The Pergonelis is right around the corner from this house, and it was all off market. A beautiful, stunning house. It was just all off market. So we didn't have comps to rely on what was going on out there. We only could look at Fredricksburg and make some kind of, location adjustment. But we do all of our projects with private lenders. And one of the things that we always do is we get an independent third party after repair value appraisal. Even if they've been with us for years and have done, on loan number 10, we still want that arm's length validation that the house is worth what I think it is. But we had no comps. We had nothing. So, I took the effort. I called 2 appraisers, one in Fredericksburg and one in Blanco, because there's no appraisers in Stonewall. And they both tell me the exact same thing. All I'm going to do is go into Fredericksburg and pull comps, and I'm going to make an location adjustment because there's no comps out there. And by the way, I'm going to charge you $700 or $800 to do that. And the Fredericksburg guy couldn't get out there for about 2 months. That's just how busy he was. So you have to kind of weigh your options of, do you go through the expense to ultimately do the same thing that I was going to do and just pull comps from Fredericksburg and make some kind of rational adjustment? We felt we had a price point that we had a lot of wiggle room, and we could do that. And our lenders that we did chose to work with us on this project, we've been with them, or they've been with us for a long time. So we had that trust build up, and they knew what we were doing. So we thought, okay, worst case, if I buying at 205, I've got a $50,000 rehab, I need to hit about 325, give or take, with commissions and closing costs and holding. And if I want to do all this work, that's where I'm going to break even. Did I think I could hit 325? Absolutely. You saw what was going on in Fredericksburg, even with a location adjustment. But we obviously want to make money. Okay.
What did you calculate the ARV for this
So
originally up front?
we were hoping to get high threes. That's where we were targeting, was 375, 380, somewhere in there. And that's what we chose to share with our private lenders. Yeah. So on this one,
Okay.
we actually had two. One is a partner in the hotel. She came out, she walked the property, and she loves vintage stuff. And so she got really comfortable. She did the lion's share of the work. The other one was out of state, and he had done so much with us. He's like, that's fine.
So you see what relationships can do for you.
Absolutely.
I mean, they get to know, like, and trust you, and that's about building a relationship with whoever it may be, whether it's funding, contractors. I mean, just everyone. Like, that's amazing to me too.
Oh, absolutely. They've been great to us. You know, we try and do everything we can to give a validation on everything. Sometimes you can't. So I wanted to give you a view. Katie had asked me yesterday about, you know, how do I talk to my private lenders and how does this all work? I couldn't find the original email that I sent to them about this specific property, so I just gave you one that I sent to lenders on other properties. So you can see the format. But basically, I either call them up, I have a phone conversation with them, or send them an email, and I give them a story. Right? It's not War and Peace, but I give them a story to get them engaged about what we're doing. Property address, what am I paying for, the details on the house itself. Why did I pick this property? What makes me excited about it? Why do I think I'm going to sell it fast or keep it and rent it? What is it that I'm doing with it? What's my exit strategy? The scope of work and what my budget is for the rehab, what I think it's worth. More than likely, I'm going to attach an after repair value appraisal. That's generally our rule. What am I looking for in terms of loan amount, terms, rates, everything else? When do I need money, right? Do I need it tomorrow? Do I need it next week? So that you start to prepare them for how quickly things can move in this business. And any big issues or problems that we think we need to know about. So this goes out to them, to a particular lender. They say, yes, I'm in, no, I'm not, and we're off and running. And then I start drafting loan documents.
So it's interesting because, like, I'm a real estate agent and I work with investors. I find deals through wholesalers and present them to my investors. And it's basically this exact same thing. Like, we go through all of this. So I think wholesalers or people that are trying to sell this to an investor, they can really, I mean, use this whole thing and go through all of that. Maybe not the funding part, because funding for investors are always going to be different. But go through and name off all of this stuff and just be open about it. And I know wholesalers never do this. Like, if they go through, I mean, tell them, hey, this is what's weird about the property. This is what's amazing about the property. This is how I came to this. Nobody puts in that extra effort when they are going through and pushing out a property, because that's basically what you are doing. Yeah. You're pushing this out to a lender and hoping that lender will be okay buying this. It's no different than any of that. So, okay.
It's all about storytelling, right? People get excited about the story, not about the details. They want to know your lenders, the people that are involved, the people you're selling to. They want to get excited and be emotionally tied. You want them, if you're selling them something, you want them emotionally tied to the decision, and the story is what gets them kind of there. Okay, so we're moving along. We closed right after Thanksgiving 2019. We ended up doing 2 private loans. Not that our first lender didn't want to do all of it or couldn't, but I had a second lien lender that wanted his money back to work. You'll find that too. You know, once you pay them back, where's my money going now? I don't want my money back. I want you to have it. So we kind of carved it up a little bit differently. We did a first and second lien. You can see the numbers there, 10% interest. On my rehabs, I always accrue my interest. My lenders get paid when I sell. Okay, you don't have to do that. That's just how I do it, because it allows me to manage my cash flow better. But on this one, we did a little bit of a different spend in my loan documents, because it was stonewall and I didn't know how long it was going to sell and how many comps or frame of reference. And I didn't want my loan to value to get out of whack, right? Because I'm adding interest to my loan. We said, okay, in month 7, I'm going to start paying interest only on a monthly basis. In case the house doesn't sell, something happens, COVID, I want to be able to start paying. We did a 12-month term with a 6-month option. Again, hedging my bets, allocating for risk of something that could go possibly wrong. And based on our evaluation, we were at a 70 to 75% loan to value. Not bad at all. Okay, lenders were happy. We were happy. We started and closed, and we were off and running. We started renovations in 2020. So the realtors. So let's talk about that. The lady that we had met is a great realtor, really strong, knows everybody in the community. We're blessed to have had her, and she sold the house for us. But come to find out that I was her very first client. And everybody starts somewhere. This is not a knock for new realtors, except if you're new. If you're a new investor with a new realtor, you want to ask that they bring their broker in or they have a partner on this, right? If you're not sure about the area, the comps, the days on market, all of the things that a realtor is going to provide to you, if they're new and you don't have that confidence level, you have every right to ask for some assistance. And that's what we did here. We had multiple conversations with the broker. She got a partner on this. She brought the partner in on her own. We didn't ask for that. She kind of wanted that backup. So again, signals of a great realtor.
This bringing in your broker, just for people that don't do like the traditional side of it. This is no different than JVing with someone that is more experienced or have done more deals. And I want to say, because on the realtor side, we basically put both realtors on the contract as the listing agents, but you have to make sure whatever JV deal you're doing that you have to have a contract for it. And I've seen a lot of wholesalers that go by people's word and they don't have anything in the contract, or there is no contract, and they get screwed over with it. But what you're saying with the agent and the broker is no different than just doing a JV with someone that's more experienced.
Yep. So, we sat and had many conversations about the valuation and what we were going to list the house at, right? By now they were seeing the finishes that we were doing, the cute vintage tile and the Instagram worthy mirrors that we were putting in there, and the custom made wood shelving that you're going to see, and the wine racks and the plumbing and all the stuff that we were doing. And the lack of rehabbed properties anywhere in the area. Everything in Fredricksburg that was rehab gets sold before it even hits the market. So there were a lot of things that were into the decision that they wanted me to list at $430,000. Okay. I wasn't completely comfortable with that. By the time these conversations were winding down, there's this strange virus going on in the country. And
did that happen? It was that's right, because you listed in April?
In late March. Yeah, okay. I listed in late March, right about the time that all this hit. As a matter of fact, I remember cramming staging and getting everything done on the tail end, because not that we knew everything was going to get locked down, but it was getting a little nerve-wracking out there. People were already getting a little spooked, and I just wanted it done and get it under contract and get it sold. So,
but I as an agent, I can see, and not even really like looking at comps, I definitely can see where they thought they could get 430.
Yeah,
like it makes sense to me based off of everything that you've said and the houses that are in Fredericksburg. That I mean, that totally makes sense for me.
Yeah. If COVID wasn't in the area, we might have chosen to list on the higher end and see where we got. I like my property sold fast. This one was a little riskier given the area, and we weren't Fredericksburg, right? That's what I have to keep going back to. And I just didn't know if my numbers were, they didn't know, right? They were doing the same thing that I was doing in terms of a location adjustment. Um, so, we sat on it, we thought about it, but let's look at what we thought we were going to make at 430, right? Oop, my thing is misaligned. My apologies. So I'll walk you through this. So sell price, $430,000. My commissions come off that. My rehab costs, my buy price, financing. We figured was about $14,000 for 6 months. That's what we anticipated we would hold because we thought we'd have a really cute house and it would just sell like that. And then I just budgeted another $10,000 for unknowns. So our potential profit on this deal was going to be $125,000. If we hit their number and my costs stayed in line, boy, I had a lot of profit in there to take home at the end of the day. That's a great return for us in Texas. Very happy with that.
And that right there is a good, that's actually what I present to my investors is I give them the sales price. I talk about closing costs, which include commissions, rehab, and I also do closing costs on the purchase of it too, because there's going to be some closing costs, but I add in that and then holding cost. And so that's how I present this to my investors. And I think if you are an investor, you should look at this because sometimes the 70% rule, it wouldn't be that great if, like, it wouldn't work if you didn't just list out your expenses like this.
And we look, as 70% is the industry
standard.
It's the standard. Don't get me wrong. When we look at that as well. But I also have gotten into the habit of looking at, well, what's my bottom line profit dollar in relation to the amount of work that I had to do. Okay. If I can make $20,000 on a house because I negotiated well, and all I got to do is paint and replace some flooring, and it's in an area that I know is going to sell the day I hit the market because it's a $125,000 price point in San Antonio, which you cannot find. I'm okay with that, even if my numbers are at 80% loan to value. On a full gut that I may have to hold for 6 or 8 months, you're right. I want at least my 70% minus repairs. So as you get more experience, you can start to look at the level of work and risk for a particular project versus what your bottom line profit could be and make some decisions about whether 70% makes sense for you or not. Okay, so 3 months later, we stayed. This is what we ended up with.
So gorgeous.
It's just a cute house. Painted it blue, went with a blue color scheme with some black. It was the first time I'd ever painted doors black, and I loved it. Refinished the floors. You can see the vintage tile that we put in both the bathrooms, just clean, simple. The stager out there was just phenomenal. She just really did a nice job. It photographed really well. We did some landscaping. We chose not to do the back apartment, and I'm thankful that we didn't. We don't see why. But just,
I love those blue cabinets, by the way.
Aren't those cute? Yeah. Right. First time we've done blue, and we did some wine racks because you're in the wine country, but we had somebody here locally make some wood shelves for us and kind of kept it open and airy and did some schoolhouse lighting and just had some fun with it. Out there we could do a little bit, different materials given the house and the location.
Did you get some of these materials from Fredricksburg or did you have to pull them in from San Antonio?
We bought everything from San Antonio, Amazon, delivered to the hotel. The cabinets were everything. We brought it, we'd run to the store there's no Home Depot in Fredericksburg.
I was just about to ask that question. Like, is there no Home Depot in Fredericksburg?
Yeah, we go down to the, Sutherland's local hardware shop for things that we needed on a daily basis, but everything else we had to port in. We couldn't find. And if I could on Main Street, that mirror in the bathroom would have charged me $150. So it was worth the effort to bring all this stuff in. Okay. So let's see where we started to end up. So we staged it, and I decided to be under 400. I wanted it sold fast. I figured that was a price that I could live with, given the work that we had done. And COVID was peaking at this time, and I just wanted it. I wanted it sold. I didn't want to sit on it. I wanted to move on. And a couple of days later, Texas was shut down. Yeah. Um, and the real estate market out there stopped. Even in Fredericksburg, yes, there were trailing things that were closing, but my realtor said nothing's happening. There's no showings, nothing's going on, and it just spooked people, understandably so. And so the house sat for a while. We had for a while 1, 2, 3 showings a month, and then it started to pick up, and we were getting 1 or 2 showings a week, and 6 months fly by, and I was always the bridesmaid. I was never the bride. People would come see the house, love it, love it, love it. We're going to go look at one other in Fredericksburg. And I was always runner up, right? And I was losing out. You saw what we did for $399. I literally lost out to a 750 square foot, 2 bedroom, 1 bath house that needed a full gut rehab, and they paid more in Fredericksburg than what I was asking. So
Crazy.
the location ended up being a bit more of an issue than even we had thought, right? I thought I'd priced down for that. I didn't price down enough. It became a bit of a dilemma between COVID and the location. Just, I couldn't get there. So, how do we end up here? Timeline. So, we listed March 21st for $399. I started dropping in June. I let it sit. I would kind of see what happened with COVID, and see if people would come back out. And I waited 3 months, and then I dropped it $25,000. Another few weeks, dropped it to 365. We got crazy verbal offers. Somebody wanted 250, me to sell it for 250. Because they think we're motivated to get rid of it at basically nothing, and we had some room to hold on. And finally, in August, we went under contract, and we sold it for $350,000 to a family from Austin who were exactly what we expected. They wanted it as a family second home, and they wanted an Airbnb when they're not there. They're going to build out the back. We ended up giving them more concessions than we had anticipated, and the reason goes back to the septic. So we went through the inspection period, and the septic was old. And we kind of knew that, but they wanted it replaced. And we figured for a septic system and the other things that they wanted, $10,000 was a lot less than what it would have cost us time-wise with the loan, just losing them to just give them the money and not have to deal with it, which is what we chose to do.
Do you think that the no with Fredericksburg basically shutting down on showings, do you think that had to do with what happened with Airbnb when coronavirus hit? Because when coronavirus hit, it was like shut down.
I think that was probably part of it. I think a lot of what's out there are, you saw the price points, right? So people are generally not moving to Fredericksburg; they're buying vacation property. And there was such hysteria, understandably so, at that time, that I think people mentally just said, wait a minute, we can't buy a house. Now, what if it was into 2008 and I buy at 850 and 2 months from now at 600,000 valuation? Let's just wait. Let's just kind of see what happens. I think that was the larger sense from what we got from our realtor, was people just started ghosting the realtors and saying, yeah, I'm just not ready right now. So. Our private lenders, the loan was out for 250, almost a year, basically. We ended up making one payment outside of closing, and they did very well. You can see the numbers that they made for doing basically nothing, just accepting a check. What did go right? So I pulled, we're still calculating our final numbers for taxes with our bookkeeper, because we just closed. So from what I see so far, we actually came in under budget on rehab. We've spent $42,000 on materials and labor and the other things that fall into that. I did negotiate a small reduction in our commissions. I'm a licensed realtor, so I took that referral fee as basically, a lower commission. And we came out ahead on concessions. Again, if we had stepped up and said, okay, we'll do all of this, we probably would have spent, close to double, if not quite a bit more than $10,000. So where we were hoping to make 125, in a perfect world, we ended up making $45,000 of profit. Am I upset about it? No. We did little work in the grand scheme of things. Yes, a lot of stress. Yes, a lot of waiting around. We did not lose money, which is most important to me. But we didn't do as well as we would have hoped. But so it goes.
I wanted to ask, if you don't mind, you don't have to answer this because I know sometimes we can't. What was your commission percentage for the listing agent?
What was my commission percentage?
For the listing agent?
Oh, she knocked me off. I want to say like 25 basis points. It wasn't huge. It was just a small, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't a huge amount. But again, realtors are valuable. She brought us the deal. She made money on the front end when I bought it. And we turned around and gave it right back to her. And so I felt it was valid for me to ask for something. I referred a seller to her in a sense. And I was happy with that because I want her to bring me more deals.
Yeah, absolutely.
She knows I'm probably not going to do something in Stonewall right now. But if she comes across with something in Fredricksburg, she has. She throws stuff to us. And I'm happy to give that up, right? On a large house like this, I probably could have just paid my dues, joined the board, listed it, and come out ahead. But it's just not worth it for the time that I would have to put into it. They are the go-to firm out there. I really liked her. I wanted her. She's well connected. I really wanted her to bring me other deals. So it was just the right thing to do to treat her well and make sure that she got paid.
Absolutely. I think this question is asked, I don't know how many times in the group, is it worth getting a real estate license? And honestly, like it just depends. Like I'm a realtor and I work with investors, but I don't necessarily invest. But an investor getting their license, are they wanting to leverage this out? And do they know all of the extra costs that come with being an agent? And like you said, paying dues, you got to get on the MLS, who knows what you have to pay for out there. And does that really make a difference? And how many deals a year are you actually going to list? Versus you just want somebody else to take care of it for you. And it's no different than hiring a contractor. It's no different than like how you get an appraiser to kind of go through and look at your numbers on there. You're just leveraging that aspect out of it. So.
Yep, you got it. All right. Any questions on any of this?
Were you nervous that like you were getting 45,000? Was it worth the effort putting in to get 45,000?
Looking back, would I do it again? I don't know. Hindsight's 2020. If COVID hadn't hit, I think we would have done much better. I think we would have, and you'll see some thoughts on the tail end of this, but I think if COVID hadn't hit, but hey, you can anticipate COVID, right?
It did.
Down the momentum out there. It's back up to being nuts out there in terms of real estate, but it was just bad timing that stopped us. Would I do it again if COVID hadn't hit? Probably so. 45,000 for the amount of work that we did in the grand scheme of things. You got to remember, I have a different perspective, right? We gutted old historic homes where I have to deal with the city and rebuild everything. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
This wasn't really a lot of work. It was picking materials, and this was after redoing a 12-room hotel, gutting that. Moving to this was easy for them. They were like, oh, I could do this all day long. So, for us, 45,000, I'm happy with. I just didn't want to lose money. I don't ever want to lose money. And as you go through the numbers on this, you can see I had a lot of wiggle room there, right? I
Yeah,
had a
you did.
lot of ways for things to go wrong, and things did go wrong that I could absorb it. Okay.
I love this. Like, is this your last slide?
No, I'm going to give you all
Okay,
some.
okay.
So, uh, kind of going to Katie's question, right? What would I do differently, or what thoughts do I have? This is not a deal for a new investor.
Mm-mm.
If your tummy is nauseous right now, given, what if this was me, ups and downs, there are a lot of things here that I would tell you to steer shy of. We had no verifiable comps. If you're in an area that you have no comps and you just don't have the kind of range of spread that we had, be really careful and make sure you know what you're doing. New real estate agents are great. Everybody starts somewhere, but you want to align yourself with a partner, talk to their broker. We had multiple conversations to make sure. I told her when we listed it, I want access to your MLS. I want to be able to pull my own comps. I want you guys to tell me what you think it's worth, but I want to be able to look at my own comps. So nothing wrong with asking for that access if it's a newer agent and you're just not quite sure, but you want to work with them. Trust your instincts on price. I'm glad I stayed below 400. It was just a mental price point that I think I would have had a hard time getting past out there. I was in Fredericksburg. I'm 10 minutes away, but I still was in Fredericksburg, and I didn't price that in enough with COVID hitting. I didn't drop sooner. So,
Okay.
it took me 3 months of sitting there with very little showings and not understanding the hysteria that was kind of going on. Um, and a little bit of pride, to be honest. We had redone this gorgeous hotel around the corner. People knew what we did over there, and people were stunned that we were asking $399, the locals. And so, to kind of admit that I was a little bit off and not drop a little bit sooner, given what was going on, that was a little bit of a mistake on my part. I should have just emotionally said, "Hey, I got to get rid of this," and not worry about that.
How long was the real estate down there shut down?
Probably a couple of months. Things just came to a halt, and it trickled in. Fredericksburg rebounded a lot faster than any place else out there. Obviously, they didn't see too much of a hiccup. I'd say a couple months, 3 months before they got back up to like nothing had ever happened, and that's what's happening now. It's just right back.
Were they even allowing showings though? Because in DFW, I mean, I was showing properties and it was shutting down, and I was like, you guys have to get under contract right now, and we did. But how long was, because you said I think appraisers weren't coming out, and then they weren't allowing showings. How long was that part of it?
So appraisers and contractors, they were still busy, right? They were still wrapped up in the volume of stuff that was in flow as COVID hit. But we did have some people that say, I'm not going out to houses. Once you get out of what I found being involved in this area of the world, right? Once you get out of the cities, San Antonio is the same way. You get out of Dallas, where things were mandated. You get out to Fredericksburg, and I swear to God, it's like nothing's going on out there. There's people walking around with no masks. Um, it's crazy busy. It's just a different world out there. And so the realtors were adjusting by doing virtual showings. They were doing showings when it was a vacant home. But I don't recollect, my knowledge, that there was any mandate that says showings have completely stopped.
Okay.
What they do have now is for their firm, the realtor didn't come to my closing when I sold it, right? The title company just wants the buyer and seller, and that's it. But I don't know that that was mandated by any city or county. It's a little different when you get into the smaller towns.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that, because they were definitely mandated here.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do open houses. They couldn't do showings for a little while. And the properties that were rehabbed like this, those were moving more than the ones that were occupied, because people wanted to go into these vacant properties versus going into occupied things.
That's true. Yeah, just the mentality. Yep, yep. We were really happy that we have private money lenders, so you can kind of see why I shared how we structure our loans.
Mhm.
There's a lot of wiggle room, flexibility on cash flow, and imagine I would have had to be shelling out $2,000, $2,500 every month during COVID if I had to make those payments. So it just gave us a little bit of relief. And we had enough potential profit to absorb the hit, as anything can happen, right? Who can foresee COVID? Um, so just a few things to think about. That picture of the glasses. My husband and I have a habit that we always go have a drink the day we close, and we just happen to go into San Angelo with my mother-in-law, and so we really celebrated that night to get rid of the house. So lovely house. I'm happy with what happened at the end of the day. We didn't lose money, but it's not nearly what we had hoped for.
Well, when you first told me about this and you were going through like the no comps, the appraisal part of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why did they even do this part? Hold on one second. Sorry. My daughter was coming in. I guess her Zoom for her class keeps kicking her out. So she wanted help with that. But this deal, like virtually everything went wrong with it, but the rehab, which is so interesting to me because your rehab costs were so much lower. And a lot of people that's where they mess up is the rehab part of it. They either don't catch something when they're walking the house, something crazy pops up, or they just didn't adjust it enough. So I think it's really, well, I guess, and then the financing part too, you guys didn't have issues with. But my huge takeaways on this is one, the relationship that you have with your private money and how big of a difference that makes is that you went through this with what you had on this deal. And they basically were like, yeah, that's good. And then also meeting the real estate agent. And that's just networking and talking about what you're doing. And then she brought you a deal and then she got to sell it for you guys too. I thought that was fascinating. Just networking makes such a huge difference in this business. And I always try to drop that I'm in real estate, whether it's being a realtor or working with investors, any of that stuff, because it definitely does. I mean, you could meet an investor, you could meet a realtor, you could meet a contractor just by saying stuff like that. So, but I think this was a really good first one. It is awesome to see for newer agents some of the things that once you have done several deals or you've been doing this for a couple of years, kind of how you just get a feel for things. And some of it is really intuitive on knowing how to structure the deal and knowing the numbers on the deal. But I can't believe the difference in what you thought you were going to make versus what you did make. But it's still awesome that you made money and you didn't lose money, that you had enough wiggle room on there. So again, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put them in the comments. We'll go back and we will answer those once they come. And I know that you want to talk about this, so
I'll just put it out there. If you like the way that we structure our private loans, if you're interested in learning about private lending, I do teach that. Shoot me an email. Let's talk. I think now is the time to be. We're in crazy mode right now because I anticipate a market adjustment. Katie can chime in as well. And you want to have access to as much money as you can get your hands on. So shoot me an email. I'll share what I do with you. If you have any interest in learning, I'll just throw it out there. I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
I definitely agree on the way that the market's going to shift. I still think it'll take, maybe a couple more months, but 100%, like once all of these foreclosures or people that are getting tenants out and all of those come back on the market, or off market, I should say, then I think it's going to open up kind of floodgates for investors that want to buy. And getting started now on private money will absolutely help you, because you'll have all of that in line. So, is there anything else? How can people get a hold of you?
So my slides screwed up. I apologize. It's Anita at 9locals.com. That's our real estate. You can also search for Private Money Cookbook. There's another case study of a crack house that we did here in San Antonio. If you find that main website page, privatemoneycookbook.com. But I'm happy to have one-offs. I love supporting this group and being part of it. I feel blessed to be asked to be on here. So I know raising money can be a little scary if you don't know how all this works. So let's have a conversation, and I'm happy to do a one-on-one with you.
Okay, guys, that's it. Now we will be on next Tuesday, and no kiddo interruptions for that one, but we will be on next Tuesday. So hope you enjoyed it.